sales. So I was glued to the news this weekend. You know, not the tinfoil hat streaming from a basement kind of news, but the shiny corporate news, you know, the we've got a hair budget bigger than NASA network kind of stuff, you know. And they serenaded me with this heartwarming tale of mostly peaceful protests that were happening in Los Angeles. And it was truly inspiring, truly inspiring. Those politicians in California just keeping people safe and fighting for the average person, you know. Meanwhile, over the anchor's shoulder, it was like an audition reel for Mad Max Fury Road. I don't know if anybody caught that. You know, a guy in black block gear just yeeting a concrete slab at federal agents like he's, you know, gunning for gold in the anarchist Olympics. But it was great. It was great. Dumpster fire blazing, you know, dude in a Che Guevara crop top trying to set a, you know, police car on fire. But it was mostly peaceful, you know. And I think what screams mostly peaceful is the cloud of tear gas, you know. Maybe that was just some sort of dystopian, you know, vape ad that was running in the background. I'm not really sure. But with a straight face, don't worry. It's mostly peaceful. You know, aside from the part where it's totally and completely not. Kind of like saying, you know, imagine that. Remember the humanity guy. It's kind of like saying if he was there, you know what? The Hindenburg mostly flew, except for that tiny explosion part at the very end, but it mostly flew. Yeah, it really did. You know, my blind date was very, very charming until he tried to stuff me into an ice bath and cut out my kidneys. And speaking of ice, the Titanic mostly floated, except for that little part at the end when it didn't. You know, those little parts seem to be important, historically speaking. I don't know. I mean, yes, you had a very lovely dinner. You had an awful lot in common. But when he tried to put you in the ice bath, all of that kind of doesn't count anymore, you know? And I love the fact that they're calling this just spontaneous and grassroots because absolutely, that's what I was thinking. Totally grassroots, especially with their signs that say, you know, smash capitalism or whatever they were saying. I don't know if you saw this, but printed in crisp HD, you know, was, I don't remember what exactly it was, but it was like comradeskinkos.com. Where you can get a discount now, you know, for bulk riot boards. But it said the communists and socialists printed by, paid for by. I mean, they're proud of the fact that they're communists. And the flags, oh my gosh, it was so patriotic. Well, I mean, unless you were an American. You know, you got a parade of banners. I'm hearing stuff in my ear. Parade of banners from El Salvador and Cuba and Venezuela, the Palestinian flag, that always screams peace to me, you know. It was good. It was like they raided a UN gift shop and said, give me all the flags from dirtbag communist countries that are failing and terrorist states. I need all of those flags. Meanwhile, the news anchors, clutching their pearls, and the PhDs in their creative delusion insist these are just terrified everyday Americans. Really? Because they didn't look terrified. Wait, you mean the people that are having the Molotov cocktails thrown at them? Those were the terrified American? No, that's not what they meant. Okay, Janet, sure. I mean, assuming that Americans show up to protest in tactical vests, waving foreign flags and, you know, mispronouncing proletariat. Maybe that's the average American. I don't know. And here's my favorite part of the circus this weekend, and we're going to get into this deeply a little later on in the program. 75% of the spontaneous rage fest funded by tax dollars. 75% of what you saw funded by tax dollars. That's great. That is great. Politicians there working overtime so some trust fund Trotsky can Molotov a cocktail, a Dunkin' Donuts, you know, the only place you can get a decent cup of coffee. Wait, you're burning down the coffee shop now? Why are you burning down the coffee shop? And all the politicians are cheering. And I mean, it's great. It's great. These politicians, they're the same people that spent the summer of 2020 letting your city burn down, some sort of communist barbecue pit. And while everybody on CNN was talking about hope and healing, it's the same thing. It's the same boomers that back in the 70s were jetting off to liberate communist guerrillas, with nothing but a tie-dye shirt and a dream. We're going to do it. This is utopia. Now they're back sipping taxpayer-funded oat milk lattes and just opining on how peaceful this is. And look at that. My gosh, look at the art. That was a police car. Now it's a avant-garde bonfire art piece that we're just doing the installation on now. Yes, this is how progress happens. It's not progress. This is communism. This is somebody trying to overthrow the United States of America. Somebody should point out, hey, setting buildings on fire, setting police cars on fire, throwing concrete slabs at police officers and government agents, probably not peaceful. But you say that and boom, you're a fascist bigot, or just, God forbid, somebody who notices things and is still attached to reality. But relax, gang. It's just, you just squint at the flaming Starbucks and it looks like it's just pretty and mainly peaceful. And you got to squint a little harder at the looted Target and all of that. But it's just vibes. It's just revolutionary taxpayer-funded vibes. That's all it is, gang. That's all it is. So I just want to, it's great. It's great. Now, this all started apparently because we were going after these poor illegals that are here just because they're poor and they're just looking for a better life, maybe more people to rape. I'm not sure. Did I say that? That's so wrong. Let me give you the list of the people that they arrested. This is what started it, okay? You have Rolando Enriquez, 55 years old, just came here for a better life. He's from the Philippines. Now, he wanted to start all over. He has a criminal history that includes burglary in Ontario, California. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, but it wasn't just that. He also, I like this one, sexual penetration with a foreign object with force and assault with the intent to commit rape in the city of Pomona, California. He was sentenced to 37 years in prison, but I don't know how they count time in California, but I don't think he was in prison for 37 years. He was arrested on Saturday and served a notice to appear. That's an outrage. How could we possibly, all he was doing was inserting foreign objects in people. That's all he was doing, with force, with an intent to rape. But who hasn't done that? I mean, we've all made mistakes. Then you have Jose Ortiz, 42, of Ecuador. He was arrested on Friday, served administrative deportation. His criminal history includes being sentenced for more than 11 years in prison for conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute 5 kilos of cocaine. So he's just a drug dealer. Like America doesn't have drug dealers. We don't deport all of our drug dealers, do we? Again, he was sentenced to more than 11 years in prison. My question is, why wasn't he in prison? I'd like to know that one. Then you have Victor Martinez. He's 44. He's from Mexico. He was arrested, alleged active gang member of Brats 13. But he only has a criminal history that includes sexual battery in Los Angeles. He had 135 days in jail, 5 years probation. Now, see, that's the California that I know and love. Give him a few days in the clink and let him go. Let him go. Sentenced to 90 days in jail, 3 years probation for receiving known or stolen property in Norwalk and sentenced to 365 days in jail and 4 years probation for petty theft. Now, that's much more like your average Californian, right? I mean, he was only stealing stuff, and maybe receiving some stolen property, but no big deal. Then you have Victor Aguilar, 32. He's from Mexico, arrested on Friday. Criminal history in Pasadena that includes being sentenced to 112 days in jail for possessing unlawful paraphernalia. Stu, what do you think unlawful paraphernalia is in California? I mean, I could come up with a lot of things. I'm here in Idaho. You're in Texas. I could come up with a lot of things that might be unlawful paraphernalia. But in California, what would that be?
The Constitution? Would that be unlawful?
Okay, all right. Good, good. Any GOP bumper sticker or anything like that? He was also sentenced to 16 months in jail for possessing controlled substances. He was sentenced for 4 years behind bars for assault with a deadly weapon. And then 364 days, not a full year, 364. A full year would have been madness, but 364 days in jail for obstructing a public officer. He's also an alleged active member of the Via Boys gang, which I think is a K-pop group from the 90s. I'm not sure. Then you have Delfino Martinez, 51, of Mexico. He was arrested on Friday, served notice to appear. His criminal history includes assault with a deadly weapon with great bodily injury in Los Angeles. He was sentenced to a year in jail. Okay, so then you have, holy cow. Now, why didn't we have this at the beginning? Jeez, now I know why everybody's so upset. They arrested Jesus. Now, I didn't know Jesus had a middle and two last names, Jesus Alan Hernandez Morales. So I'm not sure if it's the same Jesus or not, but he sounds like he was arrested and sentenced in Las Cruces. The crosses. Hello. This is what this is all about, people. 239 days in jail for conspiracy to transport an illegal migrant. So all he was doing is what Jesus did do. He was smuggling people in the back of his car, and I'm sure it had nothing to do with sexual favors or anything like that. Also, he discharged a firearm at an inhabited dwelling and a vehicle. What? This is so ridiculous. He discharged a firearm at an inhabited dwelling. You mean, so it wasn't just a flop house? No, even flop houses could be inhabited. So it was someplace where people were dwelling, and he accidentally discharged a fire. In other words, he pulled the trigger of a gun. Okay. Also, 4 years of probation. But this was only for battery on a spouse or a cohabitant. I love that one. A spouse or a cohabitant. We're not really sure how they define their relationship. Sentenced to 4 years also for willful cruelty to a child, and 10 days for driving under the influence. How is this guy out so much to keep doing all of these crimes? I mean, how is that happening? You do one, it should prevent all of the other crimes from happening, Also, 3 years, sentenced for 3 years behind bars for assault with a semi-automatic firearm, which is like, might as well be a bazooka to people in California, and being sentenced to 3 years behind bars for personal use of a firearm. And I want you to know that was not in a inhabited dwelling. That was just outside someplace in the wild. We don't even know where that happened. So it could be even worse. So these are just the people that were arrested on Friday that caused all of these riots. And you can see why, how the average person, as Karen Bass says, is so concerned that they could be next. Well, if you are inserting foreign objects into a cohabitant in a occupied dwelling with a firearm, yeah, you might be next. You might be next. But is that a bad thing? Going to get into that and so much more how Californians are paying for this coming up in just a second. First, let me tell you about LifeLock. Used to be identity theft with just a crime of opportunity, a lost wallet, robbed mailbox, some guy digging through the trash for a receipt. Game's changed now. New thief doesn't need receipts. He has algorithms. Artificial intelligence has become the perfect accomplice, fast, relentless, and utterly amoral. What it does is it scrapes your data from social media, data breaches, old job applications, you name it. It builds a profile faster than any human could, and it uses that profile to imitate you with terrifying precision. Sometimes even the banks can't tell the difference, but LifeLock can. LifeLock uses AI as well. Only they use it to fight back. They monitor your identity across a vast network of data points. And if something suspicious happens, new account, weird loan application, credit card you didn't open, you'll get an alert fast. And they'll say, is this you? And you're like, nope. They got it. If the worst happens, they have a U.S.-based restoration team that knows how to unwind all of the damage. So protect yourself with LifeLock. Join now and save up to 40% off your first year with promo code BECK. Call 1-800-LifeLock. Head over to LifeLock.com. Use the promo code BECK. Save 40% now. LifeLock.com. Promo code BECK. 10 seconds. Station ID. Gosh. So Karen Bass is very upset. She tweeted out this morning, we received reports of federal immigration enforcement actions in multiple locations in Los Angeles as mayor of a proud city of immigrants who continue to contribute to our city in so many ways. I'm deeply angered by what has taken place. These tactics sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city. What is she talking about? You've just taken the rapists off the streets, the people you won't keep in prison. The federal government, ICE comes in, they're here illegally, let's remove them and send them back home. But no, that's sowing terror in the streets. And Gavin Newsom said the same thing. This doesn't make it. Los Angeles, don't take Trump's bait. Trump wants chaos, and he's instigated violence. Those who assault law enforcement or cause property damage will risk arrest, but don't worry, we'll be there. Stay peaceful, stay focused, and don't give him the excuse he's looking for. That's Governor Gavin Newsom. Yeah, you're talking to the right people. When you're saying to those people on the streets, hey, stay peaceful. When you're wearing the black bloc uniform, I don't think they're going to listen to you, Gavin. But maybe that's just me. Stu, your thoughts on the mostly peaceful weekend in Los Angeles?
Let me begin my thoughts with a question to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you today were required on a whim to go out and get a Palestinian flag, could you accomplish that task today? Because I don't think I could. I could order one online that would show up in a couple of days, but when a protest just springs up completely organically, why would the people of Los Angeles have hundreds of Palestinian flags just ready to go? That seems surprising.
Party City? Does Party
City?
No,
yeah.
they're out of business, so I don't know where I would check for a Palestinian flag.
This is Glenn Beck.
That's a really good point. Where do you buy those things? All right, let me tell you about Lear Capital. If you could sit back and sit down with your grandpa, the one who lived through the Depression, worked with his hands, saved money in silver dollars, not cash, he'd probably give you some simple advice. What the hell is wrong with you people? That's probably how my grandfather would start the conversation. He would say, when paper money starts to get shaky, buy something that keeps its value. And that's exactly why people are turning to precious metals like gold and silver, the most consistent, resilient form of value mankind has ever known. In a world that feels a little less solid every day, that stability might be worth something. Lear Capital has helped hundreds of thousands of Americans diversify their savings, roll over retirement accounts, protect their 401ks, and get physical physical gold and silver into their own hands. You need clear information, real, clear, historically grounded strategies to take what you have and help protect it because it took you a lifetime to build it. Please call Lear Capital today, 800-957-GOLD. Get your free $4,200 gold report before it's a history book. Call 800-957-GOLD, 800-957-GOLD.
Miss a minute of the show? How dare you? But you can always catch up on the Glenn Beck podcast, available on YouTube, X, and wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, let's just go through some of the video. I want to introduce my executive producer, Stu Bergier, and head writer and chief of research for the Glenn Beck Program, Jason Buttrill. We're just going to go over just some of the videos that you might have seen or maybe even missed some of these. Here's first our U.S. Border Patrol agents under fire. Cut one. Can't see there. Okay, so they're in their Humvee or whatever it is. All right. It's got to be great going into Los Angeles, trying to do your job and feeling this. They're all in gas masks. Now, cut two. This is a vehicle capturing the aftermath of the Border Patrol vehicle as it's struck by objects. Here is cut number two. You see the broken windshield up in front. All right. Cut three. These are foreign flags and the chanting on the streets of California. And there, of course, is the Party City Hamas flag. See that one? What are they chanting? I'm a lunatic. I'm a lunatic. You and me, we're lunatics. What was it? Notice we're going to get into this next hour. Play that again. Keep playing that. You'll notice there's a sign that they're carrying, and you'll see it here in just a second. Right there. Chirla. Chirla. We're going to get into what that is here in just a second. But it is important that you understand they're telling you who they are. And we're going to get into that here in just a minute. Here are some rioters that are hurling rocks at the federal convoy. Again, just throwing some rocks at everything.
Unbelievable. I mean, these people could easily be killed by this. You're throwing a rock at someone coming by you at 45 miles an hour. If it goes through the windshield, it's going to kill the person.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go to the next one. Here's CNN, and how peaceful it is.
At this point, this has been very peaceful, Brian. It has been tense at some points, but we haven't seen any violence happening here. What people are saying is that they don't think ICE belongs in Los Angeles, that they want ICE out of the city.
Is that the standard?
You can.
Is that the standard, Glenn?
No, it's really not.
It's a peace because peaceful to me indicates a bunch of people standing around, not committing any crimes, right?
Yeah.
Maybe walking down the street. This is them blocking a freeway. She's standing in the middle of what seems like a freeway, right? Stopping all this traffic, terrifying the people that couldn't get through.
Right.
And then
but it's mostly peaceful.
It's mostly peaceful. And then just down the street, things are on fire and they're throwing rocks at people passing by at 40 miles an hour. That's not mostly peaceful. That's just not. It's not the standard. It's easy to be peaceful most of the time. Most criminals are. So I would assume.
I don't know how you are defining the word mostly, but let me help you out. Hiroshima.
Okay.
Hiroshima, 1945. It was mostly moderate temperatures. except for that one spike for just a little short period of time on that one day. But it was mostly moderate temperatures. I don't understand what you're, here is Karen Bass, the Los Angeles communist mayor. Here's what she's saying.
And frankly, I'm just outraged because what happened is that when ICE went in, they just took people away. And we just can't have this in our city. And it happened multiple places in the city. And what it does is that it sows a sense of terror throughout the community. For example, location.
Stop. So I just want to make sure, remind you, one of the guys that they arrested was inserting foreign objects into people forcefully. I think that's called rape myself, but I don't know. I'm not an LA prosecutor, so I don't know what they call it there. But it should sow some terror into the minds of people like that. We're coming to get you. But that's not the average person in California. And if it is, I remind you, don't go to Disneyland. For the love of God, go to Florida. At least maybe you won't have things inserted inside of you if that's the way average Californians behave. We have Jason Buttrill with us. Jason, you're watching all of this. What jumps out to you?
Specifically the claims of spontaneous grassroots. It's just it's a natural response, to society when something this terrifying happens. But then they all have this one weird ideology blended with another one, which is very, very strange. Like when, it's just kind of a crazy coincidence that they're all socialists, communists, Marxists with a little hint of Islamism. That's just
really?
I don't, does anything ever weird happen or bad in history when you try to rally a bunch of people around socialism and anti-Semitism? Has that ever happened before? I mean...
Well, no.
I don't know.
No, I know what you're saying, but Germany was mostly safe for the Jews.
That's very true. That's what. Yeah, okay.
Except for that little period of time, but other than that, mostly safe for Jews.
Oh my gosh, Glenn! These groups. You look at some of the groups, and you've mentioned some of them, but Party for Socialism and Liberation conveniently had all these slick signs printed up. I'm trying to search way back in the memory banks, but I think we saw the same thing and ties to pretty much every anti-Semitic attack and violent riot that has happened over the past year or so.
Let's remind you, what was the name of the party that the guy, Stu, can you look this up real quick? Remember the guy who shot the two kids in Washington, D.C., coming out of that, how to help the Palestinian people, and these two Jews walk out and they're gunned down in the street? He was part of the Party of Socialism or something, wasn't he?
He had ties to the Party for Socialism and Liberation and another group, either the People's Forum or the Answer Coalition. I can't remember.
Which is also involved in all of this.
No!
Yeah!
In this grassroots spontaneous thing?
Yes!
Wow.
Yes!
Wow.
Producing the killer in Washington, D.C. and these.
And the riots on Columbia University. Kind of odd. It's very grassroots.
So here's L.A. Councilwoman Hernandez. Listen to this. Cut 13.
They know how quickly we mobilize. That's why they're changing tactics. Because community defense works and our resistance has slowed them down before. And if they're escalating their tactics, then so are we. When they show up, we gotta show up even stronger.
Okay, I'm not sure what that means exactly. They're escalating the tactics. Well, when you shut down freeways, when you start throwing literal concrete slabs at police officers and federal officers, I think they're going to have to change tactics, because despite what CNN says, it's not a mostly peaceful protest at that point. So they're sending in the National Guard. By the way, we're going to have a lot in the next couple of days, but in about 20 minutes, I'm going to take you through the funding. You have to find ways to get this to your friends, because if they cannot be saved at this point, if they can't be turned, and they can't understand what's actually happening in California and who's responsible and behind it and what their intentions are, you're going to have to write your friends off. You're just going to have to, because they'll never get it. If they can't get it after what we will teach you this week, they never will get it. So it's really important that you understand what's actually happening, and not just the stuff on X and everything else, but you actually understand in depth what is actually happening. And we'll give that to you here in about 20 minutes. But so the president sent out the National Guard. Well, the governor was very upset about it. Very upset. He says that it was unlawful. Police were making arrests, 29 on Saturday, 10 on Sunday. That's what this whole thing, they say, is about. 39 different arrests. Not going in and scooping up whole neighborhoods. Very specific, targeted individuals who we told you who some of them were. They are very bad people. So, once again, is this about that, or is this about the overthrowing of the United States? Okay, so Los Angeles police declared several of these, quote, rallies to be unlawful assemblies, and the police were saying they're throwing, quote, concrete projectiles, bottles, and other items at police. They set several self-driving cars from Alphabet's Waymo. I love this. They set those things on fire. How much is that costing you, Google? You're regretting it all, being in bed with these people at all? And no, of course not. Of course not. Demonstrators were shouting shame on you at the police while they were throwing concrete slabs. They were carrying Mexican flags and signs denouncing U.S. immigration authorities. And those signs, as you pointed out, Jason, I mean, just look at the pictures. At the bottom of the sign, they were printed by which group?
Party for Socialism and Liberation.
Okay. Socialists and anti-Semites. Socialists and anti-Israel people. This is so incredibly dangerous. Because when we say they're anti-Israel, they're anti-Semites, what we really mean is they're Islamists. And we're going to give you some stuff this week on what's happening in our country. But I'm telling you, this is our future. This is what it's going to look like from now until 2028. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse on our streets. And we're going to have some decisions made. And we have to be very, very careful, because if somebody should win on the other side, on their side in 2028, we're in deep, deep trouble, because they don't care about the law. They are not enforcing the law. They do not care about the Constitution. They will wrap themselves in the Constitution, but they don't care. So the president sent out the National Guard, and everybody who knows anything about the Constitution will say immediately, he can't do that. Posse comitatus. But read the Constitution. The president can send in the National Guard without the approval of the state or the governor on very specific things. Okay? And here they are. The president has the authority in cases of insurrection, rebellion, or when federal rights are being denied. Okay? So he can do it, active duty military in the United States, for extraordinary situations. They can send them in, Section 251, at the request of the state. If a legislator or governor of the legislature can't be convened, request of help to suppress an insurrection can be sent to the president, and he can send them in. Section 252, without a request, when he needs to enforce federal law, if unlawful obstructions or rebellion make it impracticable, is that right? Whatever, to enforce federal. How did I get this job? I'm in the Hall of Fame. America, raise your standards for the love of Pete. Anyway, if it makes it impossible for them to enforce federal law in a state by regular means, the president can send in forces without state consent. Would you say that we are having unlawful obstructions or rebellion that make it impossible to enforce the federal law? in California. Section 253, rebellion or denial of constitutional rights. So if there is an insurrection or domestic violence that hinders the execution of federal law, results in the denial of civil rights protected under the Constitution, or if the state authorities are unable or unwilling to protect those rights, the president may deploy troops without the approval of the government. Okay. I'm going to show you in history when this is done before, and we have to make a decision. And I want everything done exactly by the Constitution, word for word. I don't want anybody going, well, we can do it. No, word for word, enforce the Constitution. We'll get into that and who's funding it here in just a second. First, let me tell you about our sponsor. Our sponsor this half hour is Patriot Mobile. Look, you don't have to be a political activist to recognize what's happening in this country, but you do need to understand that even something as ordinary as your monthly phone bill isn't neutral anymore. Every dollar you spend on groceries, gas, streaming services, cell phone, it's all part of a system that is either propping up our values that you believe in or tearing them down with your money. Most major mobile companies, the big ones that you've heard of, are sending a portion of your money to the very causes you're fighting against. They donate to Planned Parenthood, to left-wing advocacy groups. They lobby for policies that put faith and family and freedom in the crosshairs. You're seeing this in action on the streets of California. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer the same nationwide coverage, the same towers as the big guys, but with a mission that actually matches your values. Make the switch today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Beck or call 972-PATRIOT. patriotmobile.com/Beck, 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code Beck. Get a free month of service, 972-PATRIOT.
You know, the left's got a roadmap. Straight off a cliff. Let's take the right trail. Glenn Beck returns shortly.
So you know that point when someone realizes they're done messing around. They built their life, their career, and they've got purpose and standards and clarity on what actually matters. So when it comes to finding the right partner, they're not looking to clock into another job. They want someone who genuinely matches their ambition, their values, and their vision for the future. And that is exactly why Selective Search exists. It's the country's leading luxury matchmaking firm, making specifically, trying to make specific matches, right? That are not just casual dating matches. They want to build something meaningful, and their approach is totally personalized. And it's been detailed over and over again. This is not something that they do to kind of rely on superficial profiles, the typical quick swipe stuff. That's not what they do. They invest the time to deeply understand who their clients are, what they truly desire, and the future that they genuinely want to create. Every single match is handpicked. It's based entirely on real compatibility, and each introduction is intentional. There's not algorithms, there's not swiping. It's just a dedicated team of experts who understand that love requires clear intent, genuine commitment, and the right kind of guidance. If you're tired of the dating apps and you're ready to meet real women who are serious about finding love, go to selectivesearch.com/California if you're in the area to get started. Again, it's selectivesearch.com/California. Join their candidate program now at selectivesearch.com/California.
We're going to get into some of the funding here in just a minute, and we have just begun. We're going through all of our archives and everything else. We've seen these people before. They are just wildly well funded, and 72% of the funding for groups like Party for Socialism and Liberation, Churla, etc., come from California taxpayers.